I cannot believe it, quite frankly. How far apart we are on so many things. How they plead poverty, that they're losing money left and right when giving hundreds of millions of dollars to their CEOs. It is disgusting. Shame on them. They stand on the wrong side of history at this very moment. We stand in solidarity, in unprecedented unity. Our union and our sister unions and the unions around the world are standing by us, as well as other labor unions. Because at some point, the jig is up. You cannot keep being dwindled and marginalized and disrespected and dishonored. The entire business model has been changed by streaming, digital, AI. This is a moment of history. That is a moment of truth. If we don't stand tall right now, we are all going to be in trouble. We are all going to be in jeopardy of being replaced by machines and big business. Who cares more about Wall Street than you and your family? Most of Americans don't have more than $500 in an emergency.
And that's how we're going to start episode 286 of the Broadcasters Podcast. That was Fran Drescher, the president of the Screen Actors Guild of the American Federation of Television and Radio Artists, SAG-AFTRA. Powerful speech. When I heard that, I've had to hear that a few more times. I must have heard that 5 or 6 times a day. And it still resonates. I mean, I'll tell you, she laid it out very well. It's really good to go and see where she's out there and she's making the big point out there. It's like, damn, man, she really hit the point home. And I love what she said about that. It was very important. And they made sure to go ahead and put this out there for everybody to go and notice it. But let me tell you, what a great job in really carrying the flag for SAG-AFTRA, joining now the writers, as for the first time since 1960. The artists, the actors, and the writers are now lockstep. Hollywood is on hold. It's to a complete halt. How long have I been talking about this on this program? Okay, others have started carrying the story just recently because now we're here. The actors, once they get to this point, this is where it cares. No. Look at what happens right now. Now we're at the real deal. This is it. Now we've made it to Hollywood. Now we're at the point where everything changes. And remind you, I've been talking about this for months, that eventually we're going to get to this point and what was going to happen, the implications that happen. And I said, and I will say it again, I wrote this down earlier today when I was talking to my bosses for my full time. I said this, that this disruption of streaming and AI, we are now experiencing a generational watershed moment for entertainment. This AI streaming tech disruption. Technology has disrupted before. As we said, you go back to the 60s, it was when we were going into, when the movies were not so much of an importance, and then we needed to make sure there were residuals and royalties for television. And then moving along into the 80s when we had the internet. And the change from, where we had cable. And that disrupted technology coming into play. Then the internet in 2007 and with streaming. Because now content can be streamed online. By that point, Netflix has started coming into the game. And then things had to happen again. And now here we are again. A united front against the major Hollywood studios. And what's saddening about all this is the AMPTP's proposal. That was also something that was really bad. Now, I got to take this part too and play this back because this is sad. But they tried to pull this off. And this is Duncan Crabtree Island, one of the chief negotiators for SAG-AFTRA. The AMPTP tried to offer something in a proposal. This has been going around on TikTok and all the other social media. I got to play this.
But this groundbreaking AI proposal that they gave us yesterday, in that groundbreaking AI proposal, they proposed that our background performers should be able to be scanned, get paid for 1 day's pay, and their company should own that scan, their image, their likeness, and should be able to use it for the rest of eternity in any project they want with no consent and no compensation. So if you think that's a groundbreaking proposal, I suggest you think again.
What is the AMPTP thinking by doing that? That's just a slap in the face. It's a joke. I can't believe that the studios and those negotiating on behalf of the Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers, that they think this is acceptable. They're throwing this back in the face of the writers and the actors. Now, of course, the people that are going to be affected by this are extras. Those that are like maybe, amplified extras that are not full-fledged, salaried, contracted actors that are going to be performing in a movie with a significant role. Day players. And you're telling me that we're going to just create AI technology just to go and use the name and likeness and in perpetuity and pay them for 1 day. That's ridiculous. But that is how far removed, how delusional that the Hollywood studios are right now to think that they can do this. They really don't understand the magnitude of what a disruptive technology AI is, or what the streamers are doing to them in the long run. Now, for the credit of the unions, okay, of course, these kind of things have popped up every 4 years. We talked in 2019 on this program. And I remember for a few months, we'd had the Writers Guild getting ready to go on strike. Remember? And the whole idea was they were talking about residuals back then for streamers. But there were a list of demands. But every 4 years, there's always certain demands that are extra on the list. The amount of hours worked or the amount of scripts being done and what's being paid for, right? And benefits. But then what happens is that, and 4 years ago, it was the whole thing about how many hours being worked and worked over the hours that were expected. And for some people, it just really damaged them because their health was compromised as a result. Lack of sleep, lack of energy, lack of, and just really just sickness and just a poor health. And a poor everything. You just can't run people to the ground like that. But that's what they were doing. Matt Damon on the red carpet of Oppenheimer making the point that, so some of these people we talked about on the program about the health insurance quota, that some of these writers have to you have to at least reach the $26,000 salary mark in order to qualify for health insurance. Like, come on now. Some of these folks are not able to go and make the kind of money that they need to go ahead and be able to sustain. And as we talked about, the cost of living in California or anywhere else, not helping right now. For the actors, Fran Drescher made a point as well, that some of these actors, most of the actors are not making the kind of money that Matt Damon or, Tom Cruise or Jennifer Lawrence and all these others are making. No, not at all. There are many actors out there, a lot of character actors, a lot of actors that are just going out there and they just go and do the grind. They're working different shows. How many do we see out there that are working TV shows? Some of the ones that I had on this program that I used to interview. And you think about all those people that struggle and they have their SAG-AFTRA cards. And let me tell you, they try to work and they get whatever they can get. There was an independent shoot. If it's something for a company, if it's a network shoot for a network studio, whatever there is. You're not going to get all of them. They're going to have the liking of a producer or whoever else, and they're going to just find a way to keep going. No, it's not going to happen that way. But this happened here. And there is no choice for the actors but to go ahead and strike. The studios don't care right now. They're going to. They're going to take this right now in the ass. It's going to hurt. They're already hurting right now because of inflation, because their shareholders are upset. Their stocks are going down. Some of the content they're trying to put out there that might be agenda driven, to be honest, is not working. I'm not here to be political, but let's just say it like this. Sometimes there's a reason why A Sound of Freedom is performing better than Indiana Jones. Okay? I'm not here to go ahead and say why. I'm not going to get into that fight. Everybody else can go on the slop about that. But let me just say things happen for a reason. People spend their money for a reason. And by playing around with all this, you're playing with actors' lives. You're playing with the gaffers, the grippers, the people in catering, the writers, the screenwriters, the screenplay people, all of them. The camera guys, the Dolby Audio, the Foley people, all of them. The special effects, the visual effects folks, all of them. 160,000 people, 160,000 actors, talent. A lot of talent that make all the content possible. You've already been screwing around for 11 weeks now with the Writers Guild, the people that make your shows, all scripted or non-scripted, possible. The actors know it's like Vidal Sassoon. If they don't make you look good, they can't look good. And they don't get that part. So now we have to go to this. It had to happen. This was eventual. Even I said 4 years ago, once they get back to this again, we're going to get to a point where these demands, that these extra demands that had to be met, most years the unions would just say, you know what, just take the money, take what they give you right now. We'll ask for all these demands, but we're only going to get some of these things. We'll just get the bare minimum. Well, this year, the bare minimum doesn't count. And, they wouldn't normally do this if there wasn't solidarity like there is now, but there is tremendous solidarity. Let me talk about that. Writers Guild, Directors Guild, Teamsters, and others are weighing on the walkout. Greedy studios have brought the strike on themselves. This is from Deadline from earlier today. The Writers Guild right now, the strike is in its 73rd day, now 74. Directors Guild, they made a tentative agreement and ratified the contract on June 23rd, but they are standing with the actors and writers in their fight to win agreements that address their unique and important concerns. Producers Guild also put out a statement. Teamsters also put out a statement, and they said greedy studios have brought this strike on themselves. These multi-billion-dollar corporations, Amazon, Netflix, Disney, and Apple, are only successful because of the hard work of union members. Now, the AMPTP has proven unwilling to meet the justifiable demands of actors and writers at the bargaining table. So, the Writers Guild Negotiating Committee writes that we fully pledge to support SAG-AFTRA as they strike to get the contract they deserve. Directors Guild, same way. Producers Guild, Teamsters. The afl-cio's president, Jennifer Dorning, also solidarity for SAG-AFTRA members who joined Writers Guild members in holding the line for a fair contract. Women in film, also in solidarity. International studios, international writers, actors, directors, also in solidarity. All across the board. All across the board. And the first day of the actors' strike, Fran Drescher will be out there front and center to go ahead and put that as a point. She was also on the picket lines for the Writers Guild as well. So they'll be out there on the first day. And Drescher and her team will be picketing outside of Netflix's offices in Los Angeles. First, then it will go to Paramount Studios, then to Warner Brothers and Burbank, and then to Disney. All in the morning of the 14th. That's what they're going to do. It's not looking good right now. The Oppenheimer cast was out in Britain for the official screening for the London premiere. They all got to the red carpet early and got there before the strike began and stepped out. So it's been done. The first walkout against the film and TV industry since 1980. It actually happened. As we said, the first time writers and actors have been on strike since 1960, when Ronald Reagan was president of the Screen Actors Guild, before SAG-AFTRA came together and combined. Now, negotiations broke off late Wednesday night. No terms for an agreement or a new contract. The Guild's members voted 98% in favor of authorizing a strike, and it's a very similar percentage to the Writers Guild when they did it back in April. And Drescher made the point, and this is bad. So they negotiated in good faith, she says. Was eager to reach out a deal that sufficiently addressed performer needs. The AMPTP's responses to the most important proposals of the union were insulting and disrespectful of our massive contributions to this industry. Strong words, but justifiably so. If they didn't even go ahead and remember, for Duncan Crabtree Ireland to go ahead and make that point of that proposal tells you that the alliance of motion picture TV producers are not ready to really play ball. You know what they were going to do? We talked about it a few weeks ago, months ago, actually, with the Writers Guild. They were talking about, well, we'll give them the extra money, the benefits, and this and that. Like, that's the only thing they think is you can just throw money at the problem. No. We got to make the point as well that the viewership that the writers and the actors want, they want residuals for streaming based on viewership, not subscribers. It's not the same thing. And they're right. Crabtree Island also made this point and said, the studios and streamers have implemented massive unilateral changes in our business model while at the same time insisting on keeping our contracts frozen in amber. That's not how you treat a valued, respected partner. An essential contributor. Their refusal to meaningfully engage with our key proposals and the fundamental disrespect shown to our members is what has brought us to this point. They've underestimated what the members' resolve is and how they're about to fully discover. It's true. Totally true. And by the way, the 90th anniversary of the Screen Actors Guild was actually marked on July 12th, the 90th anniversary. After all these years, the studios are just more and more falling apart of all this, which is really bad. The Guild's contract was originally set to expire on June 30th, but was extended to July 12th to allow bargaining to continue. So even SAG-AFTRA offered and went ahead to try to bring a mediation to do it. By the way, SAG-AFTRA, next day after they extended the agreement, they agreed to the company's proposal to bring in a federal mediator, but in a harshly worded statement, it said it was not confident that the employers have any intention of bargaining towards an agreement. So that's just disputing. Just dismissing the idea of getting someone in to actually get some real work done, which means the AMPTP were not ready to negotiate. They're not negotiating to handle all the demands. They're only going to deal with what they've always dealt with. The studios are playing hardball. How long is that going to last? It's not. They're going to get hurt in the process. Listen, film festivals, award season, San Diego Comic-Con are all done. Forget about it. Stick a fork in them. They're not going to be any way effective or prominent or anything this year. Done. The strike's going to shut down films and scripted TV shows that employ SAG-AFTRA members, not just in the United States, but in the world. Soap operas, which fall under a separate contract, are exempted. And under the Guild's Global Rule 1, we talked about this a few weeks ago, no member shall render any services or make an agreement to perform services for any employer who has not executed a basic minimum agreement with the union, which is in full force and effect in any jurisdiction in which there is a SAG-AFTRA national collective bargaining agreement in place. This provision applies worldwide. No one is going to cross those picket lines. I don't think so. If anybody does, they're going to get canceled. They're going to get canceled. No one is going to be willing to have the stones to go across the picket lines. I don't believe that's going to happen. And the actors have also stayed along. Letters to express as such. It was a letter that was signed off the Guild leaders, more than 1,700 actors. So many prominent SAG-AFTRA members. We talked about Jennifer Lawrence, Meryl Streep, among others, that said they would rather go on strike and join the Writers Guild on the picket lines than compromise on key issues. Fran Drescher would go along in that letter saying this is an unprecedented inflection point on our industry. What might be considered a good deal in any of the years is simply not enough. That's my point. That's my point. Because in most 4-year periods, 4-year cycles, yeah, the money that would come in would be fine, but they have to do something now. This is a generational moment, a watershed moment. Tech disruption is affecting everything in their business. And Hollywood and the studios have to come to reality and realize the actors are not playing right now. The writers are not playing either. They mean it. They're putting their livelihoods on the line. They're putting their money on the line. They're putting the gamble out there. And they're going to take the hit and the sacrifice in order for them to get this industry to move forward respectively and equally and rightfully for the actors and the writers. They have to do this. And I'm all in solidarity with the writers and the actors. If you didn't know that by now, I completely agree with them 100%. I do. Fran Drescher did an excellent job. Fiery speech to get things started. Really, I mean, I think just the way she kind of just put it herself. She's an accomplished actor for, what, 4 decades for her, right? More than that. Over 4 decades. Let's just put it like that. But she's right. This is the time where Hollywood needs to go and see changes. Remember, we've been going back to a lot of things. On this program, I don't know why it was that I got into the whole subject of Hollywood labor unions, but I did. We've talked about it. The Association of Talent Agents and the Writers Guild. Remember when they had that deal that broke apart? And then things had to change for that because they didn't want it packaging. They didn't want to have the collective, okay, the agencies, the Michael Ovitz idea of, where he ran CAA, right? And then the whole idea of, okay, well, we need to make sure that, okay, we can do a deal with the studio, but here, we're going to give you the director, the screenwriter, the producer. We're going to pull on a package for you. If you want to do the work with them, you're going to have to use this CAA writer, this CAA agent, or supported, you're going to have the represented producer, director, writer. We're going to give you the movie deal. You're going to work with our people, but you're going to take all these people in, and we're going to get a commission off of that, of which there was a blanket commission. There would be a blanket percentage that would go towards that talent. Because at the end of the day, they might not be on-camera talent, but off-camera talent as well. They would just get the same amount when they should be considered separately, individually. And Association of Talent Agents, as far as I know, that's done. And that was a proof of the power of what they were able to do up against the Writers Guild. Because the Writers Guild, after that moment, they were able to show they had power. You know that? Now, remember when we go back to April 2018, and then April 2019 was the issue of the Writers Guild and their deal going along with the Association of Talent Agents, the ATA. And by the end of all this was said and done, they did a deal where new agreements were made by 2020, negotiated franchise agreements. And then this all went to federal court, by the way. Let's keep that in mind, too. So back in June of 2019, well, first of all, June 2019, they went after the 4 major talent agencies, WME, UTA, CAA, those are the big three, excuse me. And they went to federal district court alleging antitrust violations. Letters sent to the ATA member agencies demanding a cease and desist from certain anti-competitive behaviors, asserting the agencies had engaged in collusive behavior to set prices for packaging fees, and collectively refusing to deal with the Writers Guild in violation of antitrust laws. Their power got them to change, and then franchise agreements were changed. And packaging, by the way, as of 2022, sunsetted. Which means June 30th, 2022, the power of making significant changes, a real significant change that was something that was around for years, and it was allowed. But the Writers Guild had the power to go and stop it. So what happened was, by June 2022, last year, the sunset period on agency packaging ends, prohibiting franchise agencies from packaging WGA-covered projects, representing a historic victory for our writers and ensuring the agent's compensation is directly tied to the compensation they negotiate for the writers' clients. Bingo. Writers Guild got power. And once they had this, 1 year later, we're now to deal with the AMPTP. They were able to get the talent agencies to back off. They got those big, powerful brokers to back down. And they stopped some real bullshit. This is the same thing right now. The way they run the writer's room, the mini rooms, right? The residuals for streaming, the AI shit. All that hurting the individual human component of the writers individually, taking away their livelihood. This is another fight for the Writers Guild. If they get this here, this is an important fight right now because for them, they need to be able to get this done. Because right now, the livelihood of Hollywood and the content that's out there is at stake. What do? You're going to let social media take over. All these independent creators now, the content creators, they're going to have a field day right now. Because imagine how many shows and how many different how much content's going to be out there that people are going to be switching to, because they're not going to watch some rehashed content. There might be some stuff in the can. But what if the studios start deciding to delay projects and start delaying releases of various things? They're going to open the door for the internet to take over. They're going to open the door for all these people on YouTube, all these independent sites. There's a lot of people on TikTok and Instagram, on Facebook, whatever. They're all going to get a chance to take the audience away. People. There might be some people that will be defecting and will say, you know what, I'm not going to watch this mainstream stuff as long as the writers and actors are on strike. What respect does the American consumer, the people, the audience, the viewers, what kind of respect are you giving them? For someone like me, an avid moviegoer, okay? Besides the fact that I would go and now use my limited pass to go watch movies. I've watched 30 movies this year. I would still normally would watch that many in a year anyway, even if I was just paying full price, because I didn't care. I like it. I'm an avid moviegoer. I mean, I pay for cable, and I pay for streaming, and I watch the content. And all these people that are subscribing and streaming, you're taking away the fact that there's new content that can be put out there, and then you're going to still make the audience pay, and in some cases, they're going to have to be paying higher rates pretty soon because everybody's going to jack up their rates. Disney Plus already did it. Max is going to end up doing it. Paramount Plus is going to have to do it. They're all going to have to go up in price anyway, eventually, because there's no choice. And then what happens then? You're hurting everyone, Hollywood. The studios need to pay attention. They need to learn from what the talent agencies found out themselves, okay? You know, the same way you have to work with WME, UTA, and CAA, guess what? They all got it in the end. They all got hurt. The Writers Guild had power. And the solidarity got them together because they also went on strike against them. They didn't sign the agreement. They went to litigation. And they won. And franchise agreements, individual ones were done like before, but without packaging. Because every one of those talent agencies, all those other agencies, all in general, they had to do that. They had no choice. They had to negotiate in fairness and right and kind. And they had to take packaging off their negotiations. No more packaging. It's gone. That's a big deal. They took away something that was a 43-year habit, a 43-year institution. Keep that in mind, too. I'm taking for the Writers Guild talking about this, WGA.org. The notice was to terminate the agreement, a 43-year-old agreement regulating talent agency representation of writers. So the writers get their own autonomy. Because originally it was the Artist Manager Basic Agreement of 1976, the AMBA, making proposals for a new agreement that would eliminate agency conflicts of interest, including to the agency's bargaining representative. So the ATA could not represent the Writers Guild. The Writers Guild now took over and made it a point. And by the way, 95% of members supported the resolution to implement the Code of Conduct. The Code of Conduct, which would include taking packaging fees or owning a film or TV production company. And the code also requires signatory agencies to provide the WGA with timely information to enforce the collective bargaining agreement and writers' individual contracts. The Code of Conduct. Now the Code of Conduct being put on the Hollywood studios, the big boys, and the Writers Guild are justified in that. And because of that, the actors know that the writers are in the right fight. They got some teeth to them. They're not backing down. They've been taking it right now for almost 3 months. 74 days. You're telling me they're not hurting themselves? Those picket lines are not fun. They've been disrupting shootings. They've been doing things all together. And there's been next to no production, no permits being put out for LA County, right? That's all done. So what's going to happen next? The studios have to finally say, you know what? How long are you going to let this go? The MPTP, do something. The Writers Guild already had the point across. You knew with the actors, you didn't even get everything done. The dominoes started falling. And you thought the Directors Guild getting them because they didn't have that many demands? Oh, you think the Directors Guild, just like habit, just like, it's a normal effect. Directors are going to write their deal, so the writers have to be, bullied into signing their deal with the bare minimum, as always. No, not this time. Not this time, because afl-cio's in it, Teamsters are with them, all the international talent and all the people behind the scenes for Hollywood internationally, they're also behind them, and the actors are completely behind them. Watershed moment. This is very important to see. We're going to keep an eye on this, and this needed to happen. This was very important. And, I'm not surprised, but I'm happy this got here. You know why? Because I'm not a corporate person. This goes to everything of the digital disruption. Okay? And the digital disruption continues to be done. And what happens with the corporations? They just continue to do things where, they just want to use the technology and downsize and micromanage and just say, well, we don't need the other, extra workers. We could just cut things out. And then they abandon their original platforms. Because remember, during COVID, they abandoned theaters. Yeah, partly, I understand why. But they were already abandoning theaters anyway. The day and date releases, the release windows now, when they brought it back after COVID, they're not the same as it was before. Because they all assume where everybody was just staying at home, they're just going to stay home like a bunch of schlubs, get our DoorDash and our Uber Eats, and just watch TV. No. Friday nights I go to the theaters. And there were a bunch of people that did go to the theaters over the summer, which we can say, hey, Super Mario Brothers, Guardians of the Galaxy, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, okay? They all made money. Mission Impossible is going to make some money this weekend. Barbie, Oppenheimer, they're going to make some money next weekend. People are going to the movies still. We can go and, crap on the ones that have not been doing well because there was just, there's reasons why. But we see movies that are excelling. There are some that are doing well, but you just got to realize the content. There's some questioning of the content as to why certain people are not going to movies. The other thing was a mistake on the studios because of COVID. They decided to push all these movies back to 2023. When last year, they could have put plenty of these movies out as expected, but they didn't. They held them back. And that's a big mistake. They didn't have to push all these movies 6 months to a year back, but they did. And that wasn't good for anyone. So this is going to be good for, if you want to watch stuff on YouTube or Twitter or Facebook or Instagram or TikTok. Oh, then you know what? You can watch TV. You can watch stuff over there all you want. Streaming, you got a bunch of old content you could probably catch if you want to do that too. But new content? No. Maybe there's not that much to go watch. There's stuff in the can. There's stuff that's being released. But what's the chance that certain stuff's not going to come out? Remember, CBS is already going to overhaul their fall lineup. They're not, because there's some of their shows weren't even ready to go. Elsbeth, Matlock, whatever other shows they got, they didn't have anything ready. To the point that CBS might take some Paramount Plus shows, take Yellowstone and put it on TV again, or take 1883 or whatever else they got. Because there's nothing else to watch, but put on some Star Trek stuff. Because they have nothing else to put on TV. What are they going to do? Go back and rerun Hawaii Five-0? What, the one for the 2000s or the one for the 70s? What do you got? It's a big problem here. And there's not a lot of good answers about it. It's incredible. But we're here, and now there's just no choice of all this. Like, what are you going to do? Studios, what are they saying about it? We haven't talked about them. Well, let's do that. Dominic Patton wrote about this, and he said this a couple days ago before the strike happened, that with the writer's strike, the end game is to let writers go broke before resuming talks in the fall. Yeah, They're not worrying about this right now. The studios are going to bluff. They're going to bluff, and they're going to just let this stretch out because they have the money, they have the power. But at the end, they're going to have to give in. They have no choice. They just can't let this go on forever. And I don't think it'll go much farther than that. So the studios have no intention with sitting the Writers Guild for several more months. That's according to Dominic Patton and Deadline. He talked to one industry veteran, intimate with the point of view of studio CEOs, saying, quote, I think we're in for a long strike, and they're going to let it bleed out. With the scribe strike now reaching where it is, another person told them, not Halloween precisely, but late October, for sure is the intention. And this is according to a top-tier producer close to the AMPTP. Now, some people are saying this is cynical strike talk. Studio and streamer sources around are confirming the strategy. They're also confirming the plan to grind down the guild has been long in the works for a labor cycle that all sides agree is a game changer one way or another for Hollywood. Nobody wanted a strike, but everybody knew this was make or break. Correct. Positive feedback from Wall Street since the WG strike went on May 2nd. Warner Brothers Discovery, Apple, Netflix, Amazon, Disney, Paramount, and others have become determined to break the WGA, as one studio executive blatantly put it. So the AMPT believes that by October, most writers will be running out of money after 5 months and the picket lines and no work. The end game is to allowing things to drag on until union members start losing their apartments and losing their houses. What kind of demented, sick, twisted feeling is this by these people? Honestly, do they have no concern or any dignity toward the people that they are paying, that are behind the scenes of what they're doing? What kind of attitude are you going to have once you get them back to the bargaining table? You think you're going to make good on that? You think they're going to be happy about this? You think they're going to accept this? Studios and streamers think that financially strapped writers would go to WGA leadership and demand they restart talks before what will be a very cold Christmas. In that context, studios and streamers feel they would be in a position to dictate most of the terms of any possible deal. Right, the bare minimum as always. The severe method comes out of the guild's successful battle with the agencies. Remember, we talked about what the agencies did and the practice of packaging. This is what's going on. So, the AMPTP, because of the crumbling of the Association of Talent Agencies and the power they had, they know that the studios are going to lose power here. So they're doubling down on it. They're doubling down. This is a bad strategy. But they feel like, well, the Writers Guild can't have this much power. Well, they're going to. Whether you like it or you don't like it, that's just the way it is. It's going to be that way. The Writers Guild, they're going to get their day. I think they can't take this strategy. This is wrong. Somebody has to come in and make sense to the studios. This is a stupid idea. You do not wait till October to get this done because you're doing this as a bleeding out fantasy. No. Convinced that giving in, as another insider put it, to the writers will result in every contract cycle from the WGA, IATSE, and the Teamsters, and more ending in a strike, the AMPTP is aiming for the bottom line. So the AMPTP are refuting the so-called October surprise. Spokesperson says, quote, these anonymous people are not speaking on behalf of us or member companies who are committed to reaching a deal and getting our industry back to work. Now, since the WG called this first strike 15 years, that's when in early May, there have been no discussions between the AMPTP and the Guild despite persistent public Guild offers to meet. And no direct offer from the WG leadership to resume talks. Nobody's been talking. It's just been picketing. Studio bosses have almost uniformly offered banal praise to the writers, but no public proposal to get them back to work. As network schedules shift to unscripted shows and streamers buy up foreign content, studios and streamers have been saving money on shutter productions and cost cutting. Yeah, they don't mind getting that because they're hurting right now on the inflation and all the other things going on with the economy where they've been not doing well. And taking a bath with some of these movies that have bombed in the box office. So on a parallel track, in the divide and conquer approach, they tried it with the Directors Guild, as I talked about, and thought, well, they got a success with that, and ratification will come next month. or last month, excuse me. And even if SAG-AFTRA joins the WG on the picket lines, the studios hope the actors get back to the negotiating table in a few weeks. So they think the actors are just going to give in. So that's an interesting concept. I don't know why that is, but yeah, they just feel like, well, that doesn't worry about that. A new SAG-AFTRA deal will not see production restart, but will allow actors to promote projects already set for release. A move the studios would hope would further the WG going into the latter part of the year. It's very saying right there. So the studios don't give a shit right now. I believe they want to wait till October. They want to wait until they can get as far as they can. Because they're going to take their power and they're going to use it on them. They're going to make all these people suffer for, oh, God forbid, you try to go ahead and stick it to us when we have all the power and resources to stick it back to you. I hate to go and say this, but you know what? The studios need to understand that they need the actors and the writers and the staff more than the studios think they're going to just live off their intellectual property or just milking it off of other content creators. No, not at all. You got another thing coming. One other thing that's been very well noted as well, I didn't realize this, but I saw this in Deadline, that the strike's not going to include news and broadcast members. So the news, for whatever reason, they're going to just keep going on. So like all the news people, all the talking heads, they're all going to get to stay on TV. So for whatever reason, I guess the news thinks they're going to do really well off of this. One part of the union's membership will not be part of the walkout. News industry agents have been sending out SAG-AFTRA fact sheets on the impact of journalists' clients, and SAG-AFTRA news and broadcast members will not be on strike as member reporters, anchors, hosts, and producers work under individual station or network contracts, not the TV or theatrical agreement. And for those broadcast and news members, that's the AFTRA side. So they're not affected by this. But for those broadcast and news members, the terms and conditions of their employment remain the same and are not affected. Scripted, dramatic, live-action entertainment production that's covered by SAG-AFTRA TV theatrical contracts would be considered struck work, and you should not participate. And members are not also required to walk a picket line. All the union says is a way of showing solidarity. And members have been instructed to also contract SAG-AFTRA staff before joining a picket if they have concerns about journalism conflicts or employer policies, given the journalist members may also be covering the strike. Now, SAG-AFTRA offers the plans to offer placards for members to place them on their car windshields to show they are working under separate agreements. SAG merged with AFTRA, that was back in 2012. Both unions jointly negotiated contracts before in areas where they had similar jurisdiction. And anyway, for the news media, it's been a long time since they ever went ahead and crossed picket lines, because that was 1967. The broadcaster strike. And if you ever listened to the story of WABC Radio, that's a great story to go and talk about. Where all the people in WABC, all the disc jockeys, they went off. And then you basically had a bunch of hacks, the staff at the building that decided to host the programming on the station and did a horrible job. Including the program manager, who was not that good. None of them were good. And that went on for 13 days and made a significant difference. In the UK, British actors are now, their union equity are standing in unwavering solidarity with SAG-AFTRA. Equity UK will support SAG-AFTRA and its members by all lawful means. Just to give you a point of the solidarity that's out there. So, wanted to make the point of the Directors Guild, the only union right now that's gotten a deal right now. Remember, all of the AMPTB did, just to give you an idea of what they're willing to go ahead and negotiate. For the directors, they got a 12.5% salary increase over a 3-year period for directors, substantial increase for residuals for streaming content, and a 76% increase in foreign residuals for the largest platforms, and mutual confirmation that artificial intelligence is not a person, cannot replace the duties performed by DGA members. That was what was done with that right there with the Directors Guild. It's not going to be the same now for the writers or the actors at all. Now, we talked about the effect of the strike. We know that the Oscars, I mean, the Emmys are going to be affected by this now as a result of this. And it's coming up in September, and there's supposed to be a meeting coming up about what they're going to be doing for September, that they probably won't have any actors to go and be on the red carpet or at the show. So what can the Emmys do? They probably are going to have to postpone, what they're talking about is postponing to January. Let's try to get these actors back up. So now, the actor strike now is going to include empty red carpets at Venice and Toronto film festivals. So right now, top talent, cannot walk the Venice or Toronto red carpets or take part in Emmy for consideration campaigns. So none of that's going to happen. Toronto Film Festival organizers, reacted to SAG-AFTRA calling for a history-making strike, pointing to the likely absence of Hollywood actors to promote movies, and at the marquee event, if a deal between the U.S. Union of Major Studios and streamers cannot be reached by opening day, September 7th. We urge our partners and colleagues to resume an open dialogue. We continue to plan for this year's festival with the hope of a swift resolution in the coming weeks. So now we also, like I said, the Venice Film Festival, August 30th, that's now compromised. The Toronto International Film Festival, also compromised. Now, there were things that happened in Cannes for their film festival where there was a little impact on the red carpet action. Writers, like Wes Anderson and Martin Scorsese were able to attend, promoting their studio projects in their capacity as directors. But if a SAG-AFTRA strike means top talent like Zendaya, who is in the opening of the film festival for Venice Challengers, is unable to go out on the red carpet, it changes everything. Now, the U.S. actor strike, whatever form it takes, won't derail the Venice or Toronto film festivals. Both events have already relied on international productions for the bulk of their lineups. European, Asian, African, and South American films with talent in tow will be out in force regardless, but they're not going to get the kind of coverage they would get without those splashy stars out there. That's the problem. If you need to know everything that's going on when it comes to what the strike is being done and why everybody's out there picketing for, we already know why. If you need to know that, please go back to the last couple of episodes of this program where I talked about it. Okay? I mean, I really did go comprehensive. So if you need to, and if you don't know what's happening, then please go back. If you need to, I'll even go and give you which episodes to look back at so you can make sure that you can find those and you can follow along. Because for me to go back and to try to summarize all this would be a little bit much. Okay? So at least I want to go and just give you the idea of where, okay, in the program itself, let's just give you what we have in terms of what shows are out there and which episodes there are. So the writer's strike, I talked about this extensively on episode 274. That was back on April 21st. I went along May 5th, and episode 276, we actually had the strike actually happen. We talked about that then on May 5th. Then the directors came up, and that was June 2nd. Don't worry about that, because now they've already been ratifying their agreement. And then the Hollywood actors and the setup for that, I did that episode 284 and episode 285. So we covered it. I mean, I've covered it now for months here on this program. More than enough episodes to go and look at it. Please make sure to go and catch those episodes so you'll know what's going on and you're all caught up. I got a few more things to bring up before we wrap things up. AI can't replace human creativity. Story came in from Variety that talked about this. Let's bring it up. They make the point now. There are promises of threats of AI unlike anything we've ever seen. The future rarely plays out exactly like we expected, particularly when it comes to new tech developments, but we don't know the AI end game. Any fears shouldn't supersede writers' focus on improving streaming residuals or other contract issues. The writer here in this Variety VIP article mentions that effective art is the unique domain of human creativity. No algorithmic decision tree will ever be actually as good as wringing a tear or a dollar out of an audience as a human creative, no matter how much data might be fed into it, because no large language model will ever understand what compels people to be moved by or support culture and entertainment. Veteran filmmaker Joe Russo has said everyone should be afraid of AI. Certainly in an adverse scenario, ChatGPT generated scripts might be nearly indistinguishable from some formulaic Hollywood movies. On the plus side, that could have the effect of advancing human creativity and encouraging writers to produce more personal, idiosyncratic work with specific human choices about character, plot, art, design, and music. Think about all these movies that are retooled and rehashed. If they just got the input from all these other movies to create something new, imagine all these companies, all these studios saying, well, we could use AI just to go and write another Indiana Jones movie, or another Ghostbusters, or another Star Wars, or another DC or Marvel movie. Just insert the comic books in there and let it crank it out. Because it could do that. Is that good? Is it going to give you the human component? No. It will be also worse, they say in this article, to separate art from artists and the human imagination and our connection to art itself. For better or worse, entire debates and narratives, such as last year's Tar, they're talking about here, have revolved around the enmeshment of the two. Acknowledging human artist biographies deepens our connection to the art itself, whereas AI art threatens to strip away those connections, likely removing some of the art's actual worth. There's value in knowing a real person has made a real piece of art, probably struggled with it, and maybe even because of it. We always like the stories of those writers and those people that wrote the books, right? Imagine if you got a story that's based on a screenplay and you're going to let the AI, the ChatGPT, take a book, create it to a screenplay for, imagine the thought of that. Let's just take what? Okay, think about it like this. The Last Dawn, Mario Puzo, right? Imagine if you just said, okay, I'm going to take that book, The Godfather. I'm going to take that one, The Last Dawn. I'm going to take that movie right there. I'm going to take that, make a movie, make a screenplay out of The Godfather. Are you crazy? It could do it, sure, but do you think that's a good idea? Will you really get the full feel of what the movies entail? Because all that without the human component sounds sad. Very sad. There's some radio stuff in here I can bring up as well, but I'm not going to go ahead and bring that up. I'm going to just leave it alone. But there is one story I want to bring up in radio that I think is important because, as I've been talking about, radio continues to be just embarrassing. So we talked last week about Odyssey now offering a 30-to-1 reverse stock split of their stock so they can be able to get delisted on the NASDAQ. Because then we need to try to be able to get their stock to stay above $1 or else they will get delisted. Right? So let's see what their stock is right now. Currently $1.20. So the stock split, I guess, is doing something. But at the moment right now, okay, in the last couple days, in the last month, let's put it like that. So, right now in the last month, we're seeing that the stock goes around $2 down to $1.91 to $2.34, and it's dropped all the way down to $1.22 as of July 13th. Past month down 1.28%. If we look at the last 6 months, down 86%. Excuse me, I should have said that wrong. Down 51% in the last month, 86% in the last 6 months. And year to date, let me look at the last year, down 93%. Odyssey stock started in the beginning of July 14, 2022. $18.60. It's all the way down to $1.20. Pitiful. So you got that going for you. Let me just go to this part too now. So again, just to reiterate how bad Odyssey is doing right now. It's already been suspended. And they're in fear of getting delisted. There was a point where shares were down to 94 cents. And this is as of May 16th of this year. And that the New York Stock Exchange would consider commencing delisting procedures when a company's listed securities experience are at an abnormally low selling price. So that's the first part of Odyssey's problems. Now the other part, they're doing what iHeartRadio had done, a couple of years ago, 2019. So now Odyssey now has to begin negotiations to refinance $1.9 billion in debt and avoid bankruptcy. The second largest radio network in the country, now nearing bankruptcy. So let's go into that story. Well, the key loan covenant expected to be tripped this summer and $632.4 million in debt coming due within the next year. Odyssey is now working with their lenders to restructure its debt. In May, they told investors they expected to begin talks with financial creditors within the next 1 or 2 months, and now that process has begun. So yeah, restructuring debt. Why do you think the stock price fell? According to the Wall Street Journal, 2 different groups of creditors have signed non-disclosure. Where is the private equity coming in, just like iHeartRadio? Where are they coming from? So there's been confidential discussions about restructuring the $1.9 billion in debt. Oh, they're not $20 billion in debt like iHeartRadio. iHeartRadio, I think, is still what, $6 billion, right? $6 billion in debt after bankruptcy. And Odyssey, they're about $2 million. $2 billion, excuse me, billion with a B. So Odyssey has been working with PJT lawyers, a restructuring advisor, and lawyers from Latham & Watkins. Advertising slowdown hasn't helped Odyssey stabilize its balance sheet. Revenues were down in the first quarter 5.7%, and there's concerns that it will get worse before it gets better. Odyssey expects to fall out of compliance with its first lien loan covenant when the company's second quarter results are expected to be released later this summer. So yeah, there's that. And avoiding a bankruptcy filing would require considerable diplomacy, according to one research analyst. It's looking increasingly like it's going to go to Chapter 11 in court restructuring. B. Riley Securities equity research analyst Dan Day told InsideRadio.com. Some real serious cooperation is going to be required between the Odyssey board of directors and management team and the first lien lenders to come to agreement and avoid putting it through a formal bankruptcy. And Inside Radio was told that it could be either in or out of court, a financial restructuring in which the bondholders agreed to a debt for equity swap. The bondholders went up as equity owners of the new company, making the first lien lenders the only debt holders. Right. Live off the interest. Just like iHeartRadio, iHeartMedia. Noble Capital Director of Research Michael Kopinski sees this as a likely path forward for Odyssey. I see no way out outside of a financial restructuring. So Odyssey, the second largest radio company, in debt to the tune of almost $2 billion. And now they're going to go Chapter 11. Just like iHeart. These radio companies, these radio conglomerates should not be allowed to hold on to these stations. Where's the FCC? Where is Congress talking about this? This is not serving the public. This is not serving the listeners. For all these stations to be homogenized and brought down. And all these people, all this talent, we don't have the AFTRA representation to step up against these radio conglomerates, these private companies, or the publicly traded companies, excuse me. But this all happens. Not a good day for this program, man. Well, a lot of bad news, man. I don't like this. I don't like this at all. We need some changes over here for real. That's the show for tonight. Thank you for listening to the show. I hope you enjoy it. And for those of you that were listening, thanks to the Lou Pate show last week, I hope you enjoy the program, and we'll keep an eye on the strike. You know, this is going to go on for a while. I have no doubt that I think all that talk from the studios to October, this is going to go on for a couple of months. But this cannot go up to Christmas. We can't get to the holidays and this continues. It's not possible. This cannot be sustained up to 6 months. That can't be. Hollywood, the studios, and everybody else, Hollywood just crumble and implode if that's the case. So, do you want the tech disruption to completely engulf and encapsulate everything? Hollywood, the mainstream, you're destroying the mainstream right now by not letting all these people work. You need to get to a contract. You need to get to the bargaining table as soon as you can. The mainstream that you've been building up for over 100 years is going to be compromised, from movies to TV, all of it. You're going to lose it all because of your greed. I could have brought up Bob Iger's stupid comments, but I didn't want to bother with that. I was like, you know what? It's just him blowing some hot wind. He just got himself a new contract. He can say whatever he wants. But the writers and actors need to have their day. They need to get their deal, the deal they want with the demands met. AI, streaming residuals properly paid out. All that needs to happen. And I hope they get it. That's the show for tonight. Thank you for listening in. Finding the show as you always do. Broadcasterspodcast.com is where you find it. Apple, Spotify, Amazon, Google. Make sure to review on Apple and Spotify. If you haven't done so, please do so. Follow me on YouTube at King of Podcasts. All the programs are there. If you haven't caught it there, make sure to go ahead and subscribe. Hit the like or share button. Please do that. I would really appreciate that. Come back. We're going to do more talk about the strike for sure next week. There will be reports about it. We'll see how it goes along. We'll be counting the days. And remember, until next week, that content is king. So writers and actors, stay strong. Take the fight. The Broadcasters Podcast is in solidarity with the writers and the actors. Let's get this done. And PTP, step up. Step up, get to the table. Let's get this done. Content is king. And the control of your content, actors, writers, is in your hands.